Welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. I am Adesua Omoron.
I'm Rafai Sini.
And I am Sheto Atigari. Excited to be here. Thank God it's Friday. Nigerian literature in the 21st century has made remarkable landmarks through the incorporation of prevalent issues and subject matters in the storyline for societal development.
Indeed. Well, in the 2019 edition of the NLNG Prize for Literature, considered to be Africa's richest literature prize, the focus was on children's literature, and a total of 173 entries were received by the organizers.
The Nigerian writer and filmmaker Jude Idada was awarded the 2019 Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas NLNG Prize for Literature with a sum of 36 million naira for his third book, children's book, I should say, Boom Boom. It's a wonderful novel I read that explores the concept of sickle cell and the storyline behind sickle cell. Welcome, Jude.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited, Jude Idada, because there's this particular refrain in society that intellectual, pursuits are not rewarded. And a lot of people did say that, Allah, a very big reality TV show with a big prize money. But you are one intellectual that have 36 million naira in your bank account. That feels good, isn't it?
Yeah, it does feel great. Great validation. But let me just correct something before we continue. It's actually the Nigeria Prize for Literature, sponsored by NLNG.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's just a constant misreferring. Yeah, it feels great. Great validation. I'm happy that for an intellectual pursuit, something cerebral, such amount of money can be won. Kudos to NLNG. It's been 15 years they've been doing this. So I'm not the first person to win it, so you can imagine over the years. And then they also do the Nigeria Prize for Science, and they give the same $100,000. That's 200 already. And then there's dramatic criticism, and then there's the scholarships and everything. So, it's great to see one company do it for something that is not popular, like a popular pursuit, like music or rap or something, or films or something. So it is great. So I'm totally honored, totally appreciative.
I think that Rufai was so bothered about the amount in your bank account that he didn't remember to even congratulate you.
Oh, thank you. So I know he's done that over time. So I guess.
I'm sorry I didn't congratulate you. But once the announcement was made, I've had the pleasure of two very good friends of mine. I'm sure Jude knows the other friend because we both have a mutual friend, Akim Suba, May Nasara. So I've had two friends that won it. So as I won it now, I'm like, Jude, congrats.
Did he ask for a share of the money?
Everyone does. I know your best.
No, don't worry. I won't in front of cameras. Congratulations again. This for me is very interesting. I've not read the book, but I've seen reviews and excerpts from it. And I just want to know why you decided to echo the debilitating disease, sickle cell, and why, especially through the eyes of an 8-year-old boy, Okai?
Yeah.
Why?
First and foremost, I think art must be relevant. I think art must be a reflection of society. I think art should set an agenda. It should push a narrative. It should begin a momentum. And I think we shouldn't just, of course, art is good for art's sake, but, in the climb where we are, it's a lightning rod. It's a societal tool for change. So that informs my approach towards art. For sickle cell anemia, this is something that touches me. I am not a warrior myself, just to clear the air on that. So I have AA genotype, but I also think that you do not have to suffer from something before you care about it. And I had lost 4 friends earlier in my life from the disease. A friend of mine in Canada had made an error, even when we advised him not to go ahead with the marriage. He was AS and she was AS. And he said God will not visit on him, and all of that. And then he had kids, and 2 of them, the 2 kids, they're both SS. And it occurred to me, even when the eldest child was having a crisis and she was crying and she kept saying, Daddy, why me? And he kept saying, oh, God knows best, it's God. And I said, well, it's not God, it was you. You had the information and you did not use it. And I said, maybe we're approaching it the wrong way. Maybe we're speaking to people when they can't hear. Because when someone is in love, is about to marry, it's hard to convince them to backtrack. So I said, maybe I should address it to children. Maybe when kids know about this thing at an earlier age, maybe when it's etched in their subconscious, when they get to that age of marriage, it will just be something they will have initially even asked you, what's your genotype? So I think that's informed my approach. And then, of course, Tosin Buckner died, and every other person that we keep losing every single day. I have Hawa Audu, my friend, who was generous in the information she gave me because she's a warrior herself. So she continually fed me with the information I needed. The doctors, Dr. Kinshete of Sickle Cell Foundation, who reviewed the book and approved it in terms of the information it was generating. So I think it's a war that we all have to fight for. And I think that each person who has a platform like I do should pick up something that they are concerned about and champion it. Mine is sickle cell anemia. Tomorrow it might be something else. But if every one of us picks one thing and we champion it with our work, I think the world will be a better place.
You know, I'm curious to know what the reception has been like. First off, you've spoken about why you decided to pick sickle cell as a disease and talk about it. I was in the room that night when you won. I remember having goosebumps. I was like, oh my goodness, $100,000. But then myself and a friend were having a conversation about how it's now even a thing where you meet someone. The first thing you ask them off the top of their head is, if there's an attraction, what's your genotype? Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to know, the conversations that this has started, what's the reception been like? And how do you plan on getting this book into schools to make sure that it becomes part of, the literary books curriculum that they have to go through?
Yeah, first off, NLNG, they've taken me to schools, as part of LABAF. I've spoken to children in Port Harcourt and Bonny here in Lagos, in Abuja and all of that. I'm going to have a book reading with Lagos Book Club on Saturday. So I'm doing my bit. With Sickle Cell Foundation itself, and then with Kuramo, we're trying to form something, a platform where we can celebrate the disease and push it. I have some other people who are talking to schools to try and get it into. So, you have to, all that things, they all happen at the same time. But on my part, I just continually push that narrative everywhere I am, here, there, to tell people that it's not even just enough to check your own genotype. It's not enough to do that. It's also important that we go and we register with Sickle Cell Foundation as volunteers, as donors, because we have 40% of the country who, of 200 million people, 40% of us are AS. We have the GDS genotype. 150,000 Nigerians are born every year with the SS genotype. We produce nearly over half of the world, over half of the sickle cell warriors in the world. So you can imagine how important it is that we do not only just fight because we're involved, we do not fight only because we do not want to propagate it, but we also have to support the people who are currently battling the disease by donating proceeds. So I donate some proceeds from the book to the Sickle Cell Foundation. I support by giving free copies. I've seen people who have lost. I remember I went for a book reading and this woman kept standing at the edge. She looked totally indigent. You could see she had one child with her, but she was really, really low down in terms of money. And she came up to me and she said, she really wants to buy a book for a child, or one for that child, but she doesn't have the money. And this is her 5th child and she's lost the first 4 to SS, And I gave her the book and I signed it for her for free. And then there was this torrent of women that came who were in her same economic category, they want to give something, they want to do something, but they do not have the money to do. So I asked that, are there people out there who have the money that can come and bridge the gap? Use your money to speak, use your money to build bridges, use your money to give a cloak of support and just show love in any which way, a word here, a phone call there. We just have to fight, just like how we fight for breast cancer, just like how we fight for other ailments. Sickle cell also deserves that kind of concern.
I'm very excited because this book has taken an activist, and I was even more excited I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday in the news, the story of a certain drug, I think Octobottle, a sickle cell drug, FDA approved testing for it in America. I was so elated and thinking of the fact that people that have died in this struggle. Yeah. I mean, I worked with Tosin Bucknell while I was on radio, my direct colleague, and it just ties everything together. But going forward, we know that there are other illnesses, that we need advocates. And what a great way, to advocate for it. The spotlight is on you. Ebola is probably one of them, cancers are another one, lifestyle change, high blood pressure and the likes. Are we seeing this activism continue in other, novels?
Yes, for me, definitely. For me, I want to actually push the health narrative with my work. Not all my work, but as I can. In my next novel is dealing with something else. I told you the name, I'm not going to say it. It's dealing with another ailment, because I'm as I say, you know, sometimes things happen and you have no explanation. But I've had access to people that even before I had the access, I'll never have guessed. And I feel that those things happen because the nature or the universe understands that I have a platform and I have a talent, in quotes, and it wants me to be a voice. So I've had this exposure to a certain disease, certain information we don't know about. And I think it happened because it was behoving on me to write about it. So that's what my next novel is going to be. It's an adult fiction, so it's not a children's book, but I'm already started writing. I'm speaking to, because it's true life, it's real time, and I think it's going to be very powerful and enlightening. Before I go on, I would like to give kudos to the House of Reps. I think it's the House of Reps or the Senate, where they just passed a bill that the mandates that people check their genotype before they. So I think that is something that's great. That churches and mosques and you know the civil registries have to ask that important question, because love is not an excuse that you bring a child into this world and condemn them to that pain and that fear of death for the rest of their life. Love is not an excuse.
Indeed, it is a harrowing pain. But I want to talk about the character in the book, Osai. Osai. Okay,
yes.
Great. Osai. The 8-year-old boy. Beyond having to go through this pain of losing his mother, and then his sister was also battling with the disease, he was special. He could hear voices, you know. Why did you, what informed that? Why did it need to be extra powerful or special for you?
Yeah. Because I think first and foremost, there's an innocence of childhood, and there is the paranormal that happens to us all. So Osai is part reflection of myself and things that, I'm sorry, I'm not telling people I used to hear voices, but I think I used to have a certain, and that's why I'm growing my hair, for people who think that my hair should always be like this, because I think I'm trying to reconnect to that innocence I had, that preternatural. I think I had the preternatural ability to sense people, to sense pain and thoughts and all of that, to even know before I am told. And I think Osai reflects that, where he hears voices, you know. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to go amongst trees, and I used to think the trees used to talk to me. I didn't understand it as a kid. But later on in life, I found out that actually trees actually have an essence about them. It's not voices like you, but a consciousness that flows from them. And that's why I decided to imbue Osai with that kind of ability. And then his dog, Kompa, who is built after a real dog called Kompa, who exhibits those kind of characteristics. When you talk to the dog, it has powers to empathize, power to understand, and all of that stuff. And I thought that it's important that I explore that, so that in this fight, we're not only just fighting with the physical, we're also fighting with the paranormal or the spiritual or whatever it is that we do not see. Because remember, life is all about humanity in terms of flesh, and then the spiritual in terms of that hemisphere that we do not see, that controls a lot of actions that we do. Yeah.
I mean, you have buttressed the amount of detail that went into writing this book, as well as the next book you're going to be writing. I'm curious to know what your writing process is like. We're going to go on a short break very soon, and when we come back, I really want to, you know, dig in there and try and understand how you create these characters and how you come up with these stories. But they're still watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on Arise News. We're still joined by the Nigerian writer and filmmaker Jude Idada, who was awarded the 2019 Nigeria Prize for Literature for his book, Boom Boom. Now, I was asking before the break, trying to understand your writing process. How do you come up with these characters? How do you get into the story? Give us a bit of the juice.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm instinctual, first and foremost, and then I write across multiple platforms. So I write poetry, I write prose, as you see, I write drama, I write for film and all. So when I see or I confront an idea, an issue, a person and all, I always ask myself, in what platform should this story or this issue that I want to focus on, what platform would do it justice? So sometimes you have an idea and you think it's a book, but it's actually just a poem. It means, you know, sometimes you think it's a book, it's actually a film. You know, sometimes it's a stage play and all of that. But I always start out with a ripple. You know, you throw the stone and then that ripple that builds up. So it's always first. And so I look at you, a pretty lady, and I ask, what is your backstory? So I'm always asking the whys. What happened just before? You know, so I think I'm an investigative writer in terms of not being a journalist, but I always go back. And then when I find information I need, I now come back forward. So that starts, and I write multiple things at the same time. As you know, I've been writing on Facebook every day for 7 years now. So I have to write every day, and then I have to write novels, I have to write films, I have to write this. So I think I'm opportune or blessed to have that ability to multitask cerebrally, to be able to write so many things at the same time. So when I write somewhere and my truth ends at that place, I stop and I jump onto the next platform. So right now I'm writing 3 novels at the same time. Okay. So I write to page 24 and it's not working, I stop and I jump to the next novel because it is continually populating in my consciousness. And I think it's not about whether I went to theater, I did theater arts and film. It's not about even just my being schooled in that, but I think that's why I'm very big on the preternatural and the paranormal. I think that, for me, I have been placed and given this ability to have such, my recollection is really powerful, to have all this ability to remember things and build on things and connect things together and see deep inside things and understand things, decipher what it really means and distill it and get the truth that I need to communicate. So I think I cannot answer that question as you wanted to say that there's actually a process. Yeah, but every other person says, I write in noise, I write in quiet, I write at midnight, I write in the morning, I write on the train, I write on the plane. I just write. You know what I mean?
Pretty much reminds me of Olashinka's Kongi's Harvest. I mean, but let's talk about film, because a lot of people might not know that much. They're also a big time filmmaker, and so a lot of people will say, Jude is known to be a filmmaker. I mean, I'm shocked he's writing this, and they know you for your part on Facebook. Let's talk about your film. You've got one big one coming out next year. It's a very interesting story that'll tip the balance. I mean, I'd seen some parts of it. It showed me some parts of it, but we can't tell the title. I mean, what inspired that story? Because it's very, very unusual for what is normally pervasive in society. Different storyline.
Yeah. I can't, as he said, I'll talk about something without talking about it. So no name, no issue that it talks about. Well, it's topical, and as I said, I want my art to always, add to the narrative and to push society forward, to bring solutions and all. So it's something that is contested or contestable. It's an event that happened. That's how I'm going to be talking. It's an event that happened, and I think it was important that someone came from the outside to look at it and analyze it and, as I say, distill it to give us the central truth about it. So it's an event that happened up north, of which Jude Idada decided to shine the light on, distill it, and bring the central truth of it in order to create a position going forward that will prevent an event like that from happening. And most importantly, that will, maybe I should just give only this part, that will empower our military to understand what their position or what their duty is, the fiduciary duty is to the nation. And also to give Nigerians, because I think it's important that we're proud of our country. Because the United States has colonized the world, not because of their missiles or everything, but because of the culture, because of entertainment. You fear America because of the films you've watched of America. So I think we have to stop, of course, there's no country that's perfect. I think we should have to stop pillaring our country and start, pushing our country, pushing the narrative, saying Nigeria is strong and Nigerians can achieve. And that's even what my next novel is talking about, because we never know what is happening behind the scene. So I think if anybody is is blessed to have that, to peek behind the scene, bring out that information and let people know that it's a great country and we can achieve great things. So that's what my next film is doing. That's what my next novel will do.
An interesting time for arts in Nigeria, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
I mean, from Genevieve's Netflix deal to Chimamanda Adichie's adaptation of Americana to an HBO series. But would you say that there's an increased appetite for the African story, the African narrative by African writers? Is that what we're seeing?
Yes. It even comes from populism in terms of even in the political front. Every country is trying to go to your tents, or Israel. The Americans are trying to say, make America great again and everything. So I think it's a wind that is blowing, that we're all going back to our source. So yes, there's a focus now, not only just Nigeria, but the African, the authenticity of Africa with Wakanda and all of that, and Black Panther. So yes, Genevieve's Lionheart, Chimamanda's Americana. There are even more films that with more books. See Ayobami's book, that is winning awards, that getting even our artwork. The gentleman who does with Beyonce and all of that stuff. There's that thing, because you see, the culture has been overflowed in the United States, which is basically the cultural capital of the world. And the average American is wanting to see something more or something different, wanting to read something different. So I think the economics of it is pushing the people to now say, okay, what else can we find? And now they've found Africa, which we have always been here. They haven't found us, we've always been here. But they finally decided to focus on us and to see the rich history we have and the powerful talents that reside here, both in literature, film, sculpture, paintings, and all of that. That's why I tell people, I say, if only, you see, for me, I had to leave Nigeria to fall in love with Nigeria. Maybe they should actually send every Nigerian abroad for 6 months. Maybe if we all go abroad, we'll realize what we have, because we're all here and we're so big over our problems and all, but when you step aside and then you look back and then you go, wow, we're great people. So yes, so that's what's happening. They're coming towards because there's this rich, treasurable or inexhaustible fountain of talent and culture and understanding and wisdom and philosophy and all of that, and they're now imbibing it into work. Even you go to Paris, I think the Paris fashion show, they had Ankara and all of that stuff. I think Stella McCartney.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So you can see what's happening. So, but it's most important that we must hold on to what we have. Yeah. If not, then we take it and tell our story for us. We should tell our story so that next time we see a book, we should buy Nigerian, we should read Nigerian, we should watch Nigerian because we're Nigerian.
And we're everywhere. Like I think it was Tommy's book, Children of the Blood and Bones, that's doing quite well and soon to be adapted. But you know, everything is all a sweet conversation, Jude. I just Shaitan, you've got a question, but let me throw in a controversy in here, Jude. Bam, bam, bam. Let's go straight to it. Jude, sorry about Okafor's law.
I don't want to talk about that. I never talk about it, and I still will not talk about it. So just jump over it.
Okay, you know what? Let's move on to the future of Nigerian literature. I am of the opinion that we need an e-rebirth. And when I say that, you know, technology has made it very easy for us to communicate and to keep track of certain things. Now, what do you think about digitizing, works from the past and even future works to make it readily accessible to and the rest of the world? Because as you see, a lot of children are not in classrooms, literature is still, I don't know, it's kind of still struggling to find its mark. What would you say to that, digitizing a bulk of work to make it accessible to everyone?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to go, because if we don't know our history, our destination is totally also blurry and all. But the artist has done his or her part. They've written, they've created. So now that's where the public, in terms of the public government, the public readership, they have to come in. Because I keep telling people, we don't have to always wait for the government to do things. In Canada, where I live, you have private individuals having endowment funds where they keep money aside to document history, to push that narrative and all of that. So the rich men out there, I think this is where you have to come into play to start doing this thing, digitizing and tell honest digitizing, not just digitizing for some propaganda issue, but honestly being courageous enough to look at history and say, this is what happened. There's no agenda. There's just saying, let the audience or the reader, let them approach it with an open hand and interpret it as they want to interpret it.
Well, history everywhere in the world, Jude, is a propaganda itself.
No, but
everybody tells the narrative to suit itself. Like, for instance, the Civil War story. Yes. There are many sides to it to suit various narratives.
But that's what I'm saying. Document every side. That's what I'm saying. Don't document only the Igbo side and document only the federal side. Document the two sides. However, let the reader come, approach it, research it, and decide. That's what I understand. I agree with what you're saying. But let us honestly digitize. Let us have the courage to look at the past and not be afraid of it. Because when we're afraid of the past, that's when the fourth columnist and fifth columnist and sixth columnist can come and reinvent it and retell it to bring out the beast in us for us to destroy ourselves. Now, that's the government and we ourselves, we have to come into play and do stuff like this. So we as the artists, we will keep doing our part. We'll keep shining the light on the past. But when we create those things, remember, the artist is pretty poor. So, okay, I'm just warned in that.
Very quickly, talking about the artists and the writers, you granted an interview to The Guardian recently, and you talked about the award-winning mindset and young writers. And I want to know how much, of a threat this poses to literature, because let me quote what you said. I was chatting with some young writers and I discovered that they were conditioned to award-winning mindset. It's a plague. If nothing or someone hasn't won an award, they don't give any attention. How much of a problem is this?
Yeah, well, yes, it's well, like let's say Malays, it's underground, but it's building up. And it's affecting that, the appreciation of work. When you pick up a work and there's no price attached to it, all of a sudden it has no value, but that's not true. Because 175 entries, I won it. There's Anissa Uniko, she's 12 now, but she was 10 when she wrote a novel, and she was longlisted with me. That's a 12-year-old girl. I rather sing her praises. I rather talk about her. Because at the end of the day, the prize is subjective. This might not have been the best book, but for those 3 judges or 4 judges or how many judges there were, it resonated with them. But if you brought another 4 judges, maybe Anissa's book will have resonated better. So we cannot put all that focus on saying quality is only when there's an award attached to it. No, it's not true. We just have to read, and that's where you journalists come into. We need bestseller lists. We need things that we need journalists to come and review work, critically review work, so that those are the things that we speak to quality, not the award that comes. Some writers would not even submit for any award. Are you trying to say their work is not good? No. So I think for the writers coming, please, yes, submit your work, but do not judge yourself whether you won or you lost.
All right, thank you so much. I mean, God only knows how many awards Hadley Chase submitted for, but it was widely read. Yeah.